Good morning. It is hot and muggy here on Ohio Key, and I'm already sweating. I think it's like 9:30 in the morning, and you can see it's nice and warm out. See, there's the sun right there. I had a few people want me to talk about rentals and stuff, about my rentals and things I've done. I bought my first house in 1998. I paid $50,000 for it. Now, this house I lived in for 4 years. And mind you, $50,000 back then, it wasn't a lot of money, but the house, it was a fixer-upper. So that's why people go, well, you bought that house cheap back then. Yeah, I was 20 years old when I bought my first house. Excuse me, and I got my coffee with me too. And it wasn't finished. I mean, it was finished, but it was just an older house. It was built. The guy that used to live across the street when I bought that house, he's dead now. He told me that house was built around right before World War II broke out, because they took an old barn down out in the country. They brought the lumber in and framed up that house. And so, like I said, I paid $50,000 for it. I did a 15-year loan on it, and my rate, I think it was 6 3/4 back then. Like I said, this was 1998. My payment with the escrow was like $369 a month. And back then, excuse me, I was bringing home, I think, about $475 a week. I worked a full-time job. I worked for the state of Ohio Department of Corrections. I worked out on the prison farm, and basically we were COs, but we had to have a farm background, and you're pretty much a farmer, but the inmates had to do all the work. But anyway, I lived in that house until I think it was September of 2002. Then I took a little venture and I moved down under. I was in New Zealand for 4 years. But like I said, I worked that job. Then I mowed yards. I'm trying to think what else I did besides. I think I just had those 2 jobs. But I was working my butt off. I worked all the overtime I could work. I didn't turn anything down. And I paid my house off in 4 years. Actually, I paid it off right before I left to go to New Zealand. And then I rented that house out. And let's see here. I came back, and then I bought my next house, and I think it was around July or August of 2008. Now, for those of you that don't know me personally, I live out in a rural area of Ohio. We'll just say I'm kind of 50-50 between Columbus and Cincinnati, but I'm out in a small farm town. Well, not small, but I mean it's a rural farm area. And the next county down, in a city, it's named Wilmington. There was a company called DHL, and they had a big facility down in Wilmington, which back in the day, this facility was an Air Force base during the Cold War. And it was right before the 2008 election, the presidential election. And the company closed up operations there. They offered jobs in other areas which were quite a distance away, but I don't know how many actually took it. But anyway, ended up 8,000 people lost their jobs, and they paid decent for the job in the area. But a lot of people think, well, 8,000 is not a lot. Well, when you they've done some data with layoffs, and this guy, they're in this camper over here, and he has been working on his Grand Cherokee for like the last week and a half. I don't know. Anyway, it's funny how they work on their cars while they're here. But they've done some data research, and for every job layoff, it winds up affecting 2 other jobs that trickle down. And a lot of people in my area work there. Well, anyway, this house I bought in, like I said, July or August of 2008. I don't think those people worked there, because when each house I bought, I talked to the mailman at the time after I bought it to see how long it had been sitting empty. And this mail guy, and I had a mail lady on that one, not a mailman. And she told me that it had sat empty for at least a year and a half. And what she thought the guy had worked down at DHL, but the girl, anyway, they got in an argument. He moved out, and then she ended up. I think she lost the house. It was a little cracker box house. It was a basement, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and it had a 3/4 basement. But I bought that house for $26,000. And I ended up selling that house, I think it was last year. Yeah, I sold it for, because it's public record, so I'll talk about it. I sold it for $80,000. So in that 16 years I owned that house, it paid for itself numerous times. When I bought it, I went in and put new flooring in. Did some modifications to the upstairs. He used to have the washer and dryer were in the basement. What the hell's on my? Oh. The washer and dryer. Thought there was something biting my foot. The washer and dryer were in the basement, and they were like these little concrete, like a little pad built up on top of the basement floor, probably about, I don't know, 6 inches. And one had where you put the washer in, and one other side had the dryer. So you had to, if you was doing your laundry and you pulled the clothes out of the washer, you had to walk them across the basement to put them in the dryer. And well, this basement, the house was old enough, it still had a gas line to the furnace, because back in the day you could have gas furnaces. So anyway, there was a closet upstairs in the kitchen, which the kitchen in this house was the biggest room in the house. I had the closet expanded because I had guys come and help me, because I knew some maintenance, but I didn't know how to do a lot of this stuff. I worked for a builder when I was in New Zealand, and the first thing he told me, he said, first, I'll teach you how to frame it, then I'll teach you how to finish it. And he was originally from Canada, but I put the washer and dryer upstairs, made a little laundry facility, which then I busted up the concrete in the basement, the pads the washer and dryer to sit on. And like I said, I put new flooring in, and painted it. I think I put a new vanity, new toilet, because this house has been sitting empty and most of the shit was broke in there. But anyway, I sold that house last year, so I had it 16 years, and like I said, it paid for itself numerous times. It was a foreclosure. Then at the time I was with my ex, and there was a house in the same town. All these houses I bought were in my hometown. The next house, this would have been around mid 2010. About mid 2010, close to fall. There was a newer house, was built in the 90s. It was, I call them a HUD house, the Habitat for Humanity, where you help work on it, and then you get a big discount on it. This was a slab house. It had no crawl space. It was all on a slab, which sometimes those can be beneficial if you got a rental, because they can't hurt the floor. You just rip the old flooring up or carpet up, put new shit down. But this house, they were going into foreclosure, and I put an offer in. I I think it was like $38,000 to do a short sale, and of course they owed more on it than what I offered. And at the time, there was a gentleman. I went to school with us. I graduated with him, and he was a realtor. And it took, I'm going to say, almost 3 months by the time the bank accepted my offer before they got everything done, and actually I got the house. And but those two individuals, they both, they both worked at DHL in Wilmington. Their unemployment ran out. They were from Iowa, so they moved back to Iowa. And I got the house, and I remember at the time me and my ex was going to move into the house. And the day after I closed on it, I was over there to start working on it. It wasn't in bad shape. I just lost it. And my realtor, he's like, "Hey, do you want to sell it?" And I'm like, "Man, I just bought this thing yesterday." And he goes, "Well, there's people that wanted to buy, that would be interested in buying it, that couldn't wait like you could because you're an investor." And I'm like, "Okay, here's the deal. I'm going to do the work that I want to do here. And then we're going on a cruise." It was me and my ex. And I said, "If you haven't sold it by the time we get back, just pull it, because we're going to move into it." So anyway, I go in the house. I had to fix some drywall holes in one of the bedrooms. It was a 3-bed. It was a ranch style, but it was all vinyl sided on a slab. 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath. And then it had a garage, but they had boxed it in when they must have some leftover siding. So they boxed the garage in to make an extra room, which to me, that just devalues a house. People like their garages. So the guy that helped me on the last house, I've actually become friends with him. And he came over and we took the siding off. We opened the doorway back up and put a garage door in it. I painted the house. I had to fix the carpet in the living room, and there was an old hot tub out back. It didn't work, and I took it to the landfill. Let's see, the grass was pretty tall by the time I got it. It had to be over a foot tall back in. And anyway, we went on our cruise, and he had listed the house for $75,000. When we redocked in Miami, I called him. He left me a voicemail, and I called him. Excuse me. He said he found a buyer, and I said, "What am I looking at?" And he said, just accept it and come to the closing." We ended up, the offer was $70,000, and I went to the closing when we got back home, and now mind you, I had $39,000. We'll just round up. I had $39,000 in this house. That's it, out of my pocket. I walked out of the bank with a check for $65,000. So what I did, of course, I put it on my savings account, and I said, I'm going to split this in two and buy 2 more houses. And then, let's see here. This would have been around, well, we came back. This would have been October, I'm guessing, of 2010. And in February of 2011, I bought another house. And now this house I still own. The couple that was in there, I don't know. I think she worked for a carpet company, which they went belly up after 2008. A lot of places went bankrupt after 2008. And he too worked at DHL. It was an older house, early 1900s. 2-story. It was it had 2 bedrooms upstairs, and then downstairs you had there were 2 doors. Like, it wasn't a double, but the way they had it set up, and there was like a room off of, if you look at the front of the house, a door on the right, but in the door on the left had all these extra rooms. So I counted it as a 3-bedroom. It had 1 bath. It had, well, I wouldn't call it a basement. It had an old coal cellar. And the guy just finished putting all new drywall on the ceilings, had it all redone. He'd gotten all the windows replaced, and then they had to walk away from the house. The bank was asking $30,000 for this house. I don't know what the guy owed. I just know that it was, by the time I got it, it was on the MLS, because there were so many foreclosures back then that they were just flooded to MLS. And like I said, the bank was asking 30, and I offered them 20. They countered at 27. I countered back at 23, and they took it. So I acquired this house. The garage, it had a garage. It had a 1.5 car garage out back. It was an old building, had a dirt floor. We dug it out a little bit, and gravel, rebar, and all that, and poured concrete in there, so it had a concrete floor. I put new flooring in the house. Let's see here. I put a new hot water tank in. Now this was in February of 2011. And in the basement with the old coal cellar, it had a big old octopus furnace. And I could tell that this was a house that they had back then you had to put the furnace in first and then build the house over top of it. And I washed down all the walls, because they were brick walls, and a black soot, which it was coal. And there was a drain in there and all that crap. And got it all cleaned up. Well, I said, well, we're going to take this old coal furnace out, which had been converted over to gas, and I'll put a new HVAC system in it, the electric heat pump. And of course, had to upgrade the panel box to 200 amp. So this thing's old cast iron, and the door, it had the old cast iron door on it. It said Cincinnati Iron Works. And I think it was like 1895 or something like that. It had a date on it. But anyway, I kept the door for sentimental purposes. I try to keep a replica out of every house I bought. And we're busting it up with sledgehammers, little big ones, little ones. Then getting it all hauled up out of there. And the HVAC company that I had to come and do the work back then, he said that the old tin all had to be taken back. I think it was like, I don't know, like a 2 foot, so they could put the new flex on there, because this new electric heat pump was real tiny. And I'm like, okay. So I knock off some of this tin, and the first piece I knocked off, I happened to just roll it, and it had a pencil on it, and it said install 1918. And I thought, well, that's pretty cool, because now I know when the house was built. And because, like I said, back then you had to put the old coal furnace in, then you put the floor over top of it, because there was no way in hell you could have got down the stairs. I mean, it was way too narrow. And I get up to the auditor, and I'm like, hey, I know when this house was built. And I showed them, and they said, thank you, because now we have an idea of when these other houses around it were built. This is my coffee. But because all they do is put 1900. They don't know when it was built. So your places that show 1900, when the year built, they don't know when it was built. They got an idea. Well, at the same time, when I'm knocking the tin off, the owner of the HVAC company had left, and I don't know, want to do something else. He left these 2 workers there with me. Well, the second piece I knocked out, a coffee can fell out and hit the concrete floor there. And I told him, I said, you 2 go to lunch. And I waited till they left, and I opened this coffee can up, and inside it had various paper money denominations, but where ours says Federal Reserve or whatever it says across the top, these were pre-1929 and said, or 1931, where they quit making them. It says silver certificate. Well, there was $138 worth of notes in there, and that's funny. So I found a collector, And he offered me $6,500 for those notes. And I was happy because it paid for the HVAC I put in the house. It paid for the hot water tank I put in there. It basically paid for all the repairs I did back then. Well, not quite all of them. But that was wild. I went on that story there. But that house, I still own it. And the lady that moved in March of 11, she is still there. I have tried 3 different times to sell her the house, and she does not want to buy it. She just wants to keep paying rent. I'm like, okay, whatever. So that house has paid for itself numerous times. The next house I bought, this would have been the end of, I'm going to say around, I think it was fall. It wasn't quite winter time. This was another older 3-bedroom, 1 bath, and it was on the other part of town. And it was built about the same time as the one that I just got done talking about. And when I walked into it, there was water pouring in the kitchen because the kitchen and the bathroom were added onto this house, which told me it was built before you had bathrooms. Well, before a lot of people had bathrooms in the house. And immediately I'm like, well, this house, I'm going to offer way less, And again, the bank was asking $30,000. I think Fifth Third Bank owned this one. That or it was Huntington Bank shares. I can't remember which one it was a foreclosure. And they offered them 20. They countered 27. I got this house for 23,000. This house, I put a new HVAC system in it when I bought it. We put a new hot water tank in. Had to put all new cabinets because where the water was coming in, we stripped all the drywall down, went down to the framing. Had the city inspector, Rod, he's a good guy. In my town, I like Rod. He came in, I showed him what we was doing. He said, let it dry out, spray it with bleach, make sure it's good and dry, put an insulation back up, and then re-drywall it. So that's what I did, and had him come over and look at it. The people that had the house, before it went into foreclosure, the mailman said this house had sat empty for about a year. They must have, them or the bank had upgraded the panel box to 200 amp, which was good. And this house had a 1.5 car garage, block garage out back. I'm going through my houses. I still own that one. Then the next house, this one was a HUD foreclosure, and I asked the realtor back then. I'm like, "What's a HUD foreclosure?" And he goes, "Well, they ended up going through USDA to buy the house, USDA loan, which means they finance 100%, and that's who foreclosed on them." So anyway, this house, older house again, 3-bedroom, 1 bath. Now this house had a 3-car garage out back, and I got this house for $19,000. And like I said, I still own the house. That house entered service, I think it was the beginning of 11, 12. I'm thinking back, it's been a while. I think it entered service around about the springtime of 2012. And enter service, that's like a phrase that tax professionals use. When you buy a rental, you do all the updates to it, and you got to keep track of that plus what you paid for it. This is a residential house. And then you rent it out and enter service per se, because you get to write the price you paid for it plus what you had to put in initially to get it up to code living condition, and then you get to depreciate that amount over 27.5 years. So like I said, I still own that house. Then let's see here, let me go to my next one. That would be Leesburg. Okay, the next house that actually belongs to my next door neighbor. He's a friend of mine. I sold it to him. This next house, it was a 4-bedroom. Was a 4-bedroom in there? 4-bedroom, 1 bath. I added half a bath. And then I bought one of those Amish garages, the ones that's all pre-built. It was a 12 by 20. You can pull a car into them. Their Amish stuff is built really good. They're like a mini house, but it's just a garage. And this house particular, it was a Medicaid Recovery Act foreclosure, and I didn't know what that was. And this was in 2014. Did I buy anything? Yeah, I'm trying to think here when I bought these houses. I think it was May of 2014. Yes. And what had happened? The old lady that lived there went to the nursing home, and like any nursing home across our great country, when you go in, they want to make sure they're going to get their payment, so they can they put a lien on your property. Well, evidently because she was on Medicaid or welfare or something prior to her being 55, the federal government put a lien on it, and they took the house. So the nursing home didn't get it. So I paid $32,000 for this house because the realtor, he told me he said bid 32 and you'll get it. He said you'll get it. So I ended up getting it. And by this time, my dad, he's no longer with me. He's been gone now for 8 years. He's seen how good I was doing with this stuff, and he's like, hey, he goes, you want a silent investor? And I'm like, oh yeah, Dad, I don't care. And he goes, well, I'll go 50-50 with you. He goes, you bought the house, I'll pay to fix it up. I'm like, that's cool, yeah. And we just split the money down. Yeah, split the rent income down the middle. So anyway, I got it fixed up, and this would have been in May of 14 when I got the house. I sold it to my next door neighbor. Well, he's not my next door neighbor now, my friend. I sold it to him in, I'm trying to think, was it 2020? Or that's when he moved into it. Because I had tenants in there, and he approached me, and he was wanting to move in it, and I'm like, man, I'm not going to kick him. I'm not going to kick my tenants out. They're good people. And the people in there I've still talked to today. Matter of fact, the guy, he helps me from time to time if I need a hand working on stuff. And he said, well, why don't you meet me? So he met me, and he laid a check down in front of me. And he said, well, does get me in the house? And I said, I'll tell him to move out. And so I did I let him stand there. We did a lease with option to buy, and I gave him time to get his stuff in order. And then he ended up buying a house off of me. The house I'm in now, which would be next to his, was a rental that belonged to another guy I know. I went to school with their oldest daughter, and I got a hold of him. I knew he was getting ready to retire, and I said, hey, you want to sell this house? And I said, you getting ready to retire? So I ended up buying it off of them, and that's my house. It's a little 2-bedroom, 1 bath. I put a poured patio, concrete patio on the back, and I put a top on it. And then the garage I got, it's a 16 by 24, and it's an Amish garage. I got a hold of the Amish out in Amish country down in southern Ohio, not the ones up north, not the old order Amish, the newer ones, and down by the river. And this was a repo, and I went down to look at it, and I'm like, Nathan, I said, tell me about it. And he said, well, they bought it, they made 8 payments on it, and they used it as a chicken coop. And so we went out, chased the chickens out, and repoed it. And I said, okay. I said, so what is this? Now, this was in 2000, when I bought my house, 2021. And I said, so what's this thing go for retail? He said, considering it's only 8 months old, he said, this new would be $15,000. I said, he goes, but to you delivered $7,500. I said, cool, go ahead. And then I took it. And that's what I keep for my garage and my house. Then let's jump over to, there's another house, my next house. This house I got in 2017. Yeah, 2017. It was through an estate sale. The gentleman passed away. I know his kids. They're a little older than me, and I bought this house off of them. I got it. I paid $20,000 for it. It pretty well needed redone because the house was set empty for a while. It wasn't in bad shape, but it needed brought up to date. I still own that house. And of course, I got Dad's house because when he passed away, it automatically went to me. My dad, he got real sick back in 2011. He got pneumonia real bad, and Dad was a smoker, but he also worked for an oil company, oil, and y'all like how I talk. He worked for an oil company, and a lot of the fumes he was around all the years, that added to his smoking, and he was a Vietnam vet, and he was a mechanic in the, well, besides a gunner, but he was also a mechanic in the Army, and he was telling me about when they were welding and stuff like that, and all them chemicals and stuff he was exposed to. But anyway, he got pneumonia, and I wasn't sure if he was going to make it because he was bad. And I stayed with him for 3 weeks, and I made sure he got his medicine, made sure he got up, made sure he ate, because Dad lived in this house by himself. He got divorced from his second wife, and it's a 3-bedroom, 1 bath. It's got an attached garage. I put a lot of money in this house. But Dad, after he got better, he said, "Come with me." He said, "I'm going to put you on my deed." And I said, "Okay." So we went up to the auditor's office, and he did a quick claim and added me to his deed. So that way when, well, at the time, I was half owner of it, but at the time when he passed, it automatically went to me. There was no estate for it whatsoever. Dad had a loan on it still at the time because he had to buy out his ex-wife, and the bank wasn't happy about that, so he went and redid his loan, and I co-signed on it because I was on the deed. No big deal. I wasn't worried about it. So anyway, at the time, I didn't inherit Dad's house per se, but at the time they classified me as an heir and inheriting it. It was worth $80,000. Yeah, because I think he owed 58 on it, something like that. But anyway, Dad bought that house in '95. He did a lot of work to it. Since then, I put new windows in it, put a whole new bathroom in it. What else? Let's see here. When Dad was still alive, he put a new metal roof on it, added an Amish shed. I think it was like a 12 by 12 out back. But I'm trying to think of the other houses I got. I went through them. I got them in order I bought them in. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Second one, third. Yeah, those are all the houses I got. I had a piece of land that I owned. I bought it very cheap. This was out in the hills there in southern Ohio, and if I remember how the closing went, this couple that had it, I can't remember, but I don't think it happened there, but somebody was telling me about it. They just popped out a kid, and she found out he'd been cheating on her. So you're gonna have to instant divorce and had to sell the property. They were wanting, I think they wanted it was like 80,000 or something like that for it, and it had 27 and a half acres with it, and ended up I traded with the neighbor after I bought it because she had a single wide trailer on 2 acres of it, and instead of paying me rent, we swapped. I gave her that 2.5 flat acreage for 10.5 acres that was connected on my side of the road. So we did an even trade on that. But ended up, I had I think I had like 60 grand in this property. Because of the way that we did the trade, I went to the auditor and I'm like, can I get this 10.5 acres incorporated in what I got? And they said, no, you have to have a whole new survey. We got to make up new deeds. I'm like, I'm not going to do that crap. So I ended up, they had an old house on it. Well, we tore it down and we burned it. And I had an old little barn. It had, out there they had county water. We did find a septic, and I had my camper sitting out there, and we set it up kind of like a campground, kind of like you a KOA or in a campground, and I put the camper out there. Well, because at the time I wasn't living in any of my rentals at that time, that and this was in 2018, the IRS classified me as living there. And I'm like, it's a camper. They said, doesn't matter. You are on that property. That is your residence. I'm like, well, cool. That means I got to pay no capital gains tax. I don't have to do a 1031 exchange. But anyway, I sold off the 10.5 acres to a gentleman. I had all the big trees. I had it all timbered. I had a real good friend of mine. He come out and he cut what they could cut, and we left all the smaller stuff. At the same time, I was I was making firewood, and my girlfriend, like I said, she lived over near Cincinnati, and I was taking firewood so we could have fires and stuff, and I started stacking it up, and I started selling firewood on the side. The little stream, little mini creek. I was dredging it out because it was all full of crap and build up, and the big old rocks, like just if they were, I would just pull them out of the ground. They were in the way. I'd start setting those aside, and one of my girlfriends, we grew up together, and I was putting on Facebook all the rocks I was getting, and she goes, you should take those and put them on Facebook Marketplace. And I did. And I had people, like, they were buying them for landscaping stuff. I'm like, well, cool. I'm not especially digging them up. If they're in the road, I pull them. And it was funny because I don't know if I mentioned this before, but one of the customers that I sold to, he was I don't know if he still is, but he was a Cincinnati Bengals football player. Went to his house, big old tall dude, big muscly dude, and we was talking. I said, are you on Bengals? He goes, yeah, I'm one of their football players. I don't know if he's a lineman or something, big old dude. And I took this load of rocks. I got a 20-foot utility trailer, and I had the front of it full, and I had my little compact backhoe in the back, and I'm gonna guess my bucket, it's like a 4-foot, it's basically 2 wheelbarrow loads, my little bucket on my compact backhoe. I think I had maybe 4 of those scoops on there, and this guy gave me $1,800 for this load of rocks, and he tipped me. He gave me a tip. It was kind of funny. Had another lady on some of the bigger rocks. It was unique, and she was on another load I had going in. Well, this was, I don't know how many years ago this was, but she wanted something special for her kids for Christmas. She had 4 kids. Yeah, she had 4 kids. She told me to meet her. Give me a second. Some coffee. She told me to meet her and gave me an address. Well, I pull up, and it's a monument place. And I was kind of like, wasn't sure what was going on. So I back up in there. Well, she was going to have each of her children's home address engraved into these big rocks and give it to them for Christmas. And I thought, that's kind of neat. Who'd have thought about that? And of course, you want to take it to a monument place, because that's what they do. They ain't do engraving. But now I ended up by the time I sold that place, I sold it for $90,000. And plus the money I made off of firewood, rocks and stuff like that, Would have say almost doubled that. It's getting ready to blow up a storm down here. Let you guys look at this. This is coming right at us. Now this is coming from, this is mainland Florida, will be that way, because you got the Florida Bay right there. So, but anyway, that was interesting. Just thought I'd share all those stories with you guys. But no, I'm waiting on this next crash, and it's like I said, it's like a slow train crash. It's like a roller coaster going up, and it's slow. And even though it's over the top, like I said, we're about here on the roller coaster. But as more of the rearage of the actual coaster gets over, the quicker it goes. And the biggest thing I believe you're going to see is tax foreclosures. I know in my county, what I've paid, my taxes have almost doubled. When this new increase, they did the same shit back in 08. Like I said, I think it was 2011, they finally came around to devalue these houses, and they were no longer worth what they had been valued at. I mean, 08, that had been 3 years prior. Actually 08 started around 06 is when it really started to happen. Like, it started leading up to everything. And 07 got even worse, and then 08. But they came around 2011, and they were doing reevaluations, and the values had dropped so much that I think it was it the next 2012 or 2013, these county auditors sent these appraisers back out to do an emergency reassessment, is what the one told me. I said, why are you here? It's not. They said, well, we need an emergency reassessment because the loss in revenue. And that's what I was talking about, these property taxes. They dropped them. They didn't drop them very much. But these houses were not worth on the auditor's value in 11, even what they dropped them to. They still weren't worth that. You couldn't get them out of it. So you're paying more than what the house is worth. And it's... taxes is like cocaine to the government, your property taxes especially. They were so used to pulling in all those high revenues, you know, from what was it, up till 2011, like just what it is right now. All the values, they got them jacked way up. Well, all them that they're pulling in all that money off all those your levies on this. The assessments, and they were so used to that amount of money being there. When the house is dropped in value and they do a reassessment, the values have went down so much beyond what below where they even had them set at, they couldn't sustain operating on that money. So they come out and did a reassessment again. And like I said, that's the same crap that's going on right now. When they have to start devaluing these properties, they're going to go in complete panic mode. And these houses are not worth what they got them at right now. But anyway, I'm going to get off there. That's a different subject. But I'm glad you guys all watched. Hope you enjoyed me talking about my rentals and stuff like that. Until next time, if you like my content, give it a like. Please subscribe to my channel. Getting the numbers up helps my channel. Share the video. Appreciate it if you share it too. Thanks.